Eins, zwei. 1, 2, 1, 2. Sound check. 1, 2. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest Blood Red podcast with me, Ian Doyle, today. Joining me, it's not so much a podcast, but a conversation with Paul Gorst. Hello, Paul.
Hello, Ian.
How you doing?
Good, yes. I did think Joe Rimmer was on this, so I've just put out to my numerous followers that Joe is on the pod with us. So if you're joining in for Joe's musings, then I do apologise, but we'll get through it, won't we? We'll have a lot to talk about.
We will have a lot to talk about, and we'll have to get through it. And of course, as we've hinted many a time, the times are changing on the Blood Red podcast, and very soon there won't be many of us left to actually do the podcast.
There's winds of change sweeping through the
yeah.
company, and we shall see who's left.
Yeah, so it literally is a Blood Red vetting of some of our staff, basically. So, before we go any further, should we get a word with our sponsors, NordVPN?
We'll have to, won't we?
I think we should do. They are paying for the privilege. To get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/bloodred. Our link will also give you 4 extra months. On the 2-year plan, there's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the podcast episode description box below. Now, obviously, Theo is not with us at the moment. He is in America, I think it is.
Sunny climes, yeah.
He is, yeah. I think
Miami,
he'll be bashing his NordVPN, that's for sure. Yeah. You were going to say?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, so you just sort of cryptically, half-jokingly hinted about what is coming, but I think we should probably address it a bit more formally, informally.
Shall we?
Yeah.
Well, we know Keeper's gone.
Yeah.
Keeper's gone. We know that there are some other people going. We're not going to mention the names because they can say themselves who's going. And it means that going a little bit forward, there will be fewer of us.
There might be well, there's going to be some teething problems to these changes, and we shall see how we get on with your 2 weekly blood reds. We will endeavour to do our best.
But well, that's if we're still here.
Yes,
because there's absolutely no guarantee that that's going to happen.
Yeah, whoever stays, we'll try.
So try and stick with the Blood Red podcast if you can, even if it may just be a Blood Red monologue sometimes. We'll have to wait and see. Right, the transfer window. Paul, you haven't done a podcast since it ended on Monday evening. How was it for you, Paul?
Well, me and you split up the day, didn't we, between us? You did the early and I did the late. And there was a lot happening late. Alexander Isak was confirmed, wasn't he, as a Liverpool player by 9:30 p.m. I thought it was quite interesting, actually, because Vinny O'Connor of Sky Sports was up at the AXA training centre all day. And I think he got told to move from his vantage point at one point by people at the club because Isak was doing his rounds with the kit on, the unveiling, before it was official. And he didn't want that getting out onto Sky Sports. So he had to move with his dutiful cameraman, which I thought was quite funny. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't anything that was unexpected, certainly from Sunday night. We got home from the Arsenal game, didn't we? And then a few hours later, it emerged that Liverpool had been in talks with Newcastle and come to an agreement at £125 million. Newcastle, from their circles, are suggesting it's 130 with solidarity payments. I'm not too sure what they are, if I'm being honest. But either way, it's a British transfer record for Liverpool. Brings an end to the summer-long transfer saga, which, for us, it was something to cover, something to follow, something to chase up. But I'm pretty sure people who weren't involved in it might have been getting a bit bored by it all.
I think you'll find people who were involved in it were getting very bored of it.
Got a bit tedious and a bit tawdry by the end of it. But Liverpool have got the man. What it did find interesting, speaking to people on deadline day, was no one was willing to tell you the sorts of things that they might do when a player signs for Liverpool. 1 or 2 little bits of detail. It was very much just, he signed, it's a 6-year contract, here's the fee. Because I think Liverpool are keen to sort of quiet the noise on this one now because it's dragged on for so long and it's obviously been quite acrimonious from Isak's end with Newcastle. So Liverpool don't want to do anything to kick that all off again or inflame the situation. So they just announced it very formally, very succinctly. But, you know, he is here and he is the most expensive player in British football history, taking the number 9, 6-year deal. And now the onus is on him to perform. But I think it might be some time before we see that. You know, that kind of form he showed last year, 23 Premier League goals, because he hasn't played since May, has he? So
that's
he's
it.
got to get up to
people forgetting
speed.
that, yeah. He even said that himself, didn't he? When he was out in, I think it was in Sweden. He's doing his press conference there, and he mentioned it. Obviously, Liverpool were also linked with somebody else. Basically agreed to sign Marc Guehi of Crystal Palace. That didn't happen, and I know, as you said, you were on the late shift. So why didn't it happen?
Yeah, it was a quite dramatic turn of events, wasn't it? We got the word through just as we were about to do the pod, actually. The Guehi was having his medical in London, and it all looked like it was going to go through. £35 million with a 10% sell-on clause written into that as well. I mean, Liverpool had offered that a few weeks earlier, hadn't they? And it hadn't so much been rejected as such. It was almost just left on the table. And Palace felt that he had to finally blink on deadline day, but Oliver Glasner has stuck to his guns, hasn't he, on this one? And he was quite forthright in it after the Villa game the day before, saying that he can't leave because we haven't got anyone in. And I can understand why some Liverpool supporters have been a bit frustrated with Oliver Glasner, but I think ultimately that's what you want from your manager. If you're a fan, you want your manager fighting to keep your best players, don't you? And he absolutely did. So he's eventually got his wish, because I think him and Steve Parish, I think Palace have weighed it up. Parish was quite frank in the fact that Palace had to sell him in the Wembley mix zone after the Community Shield. But I think he's ultimately looked at it and thought, well, we're losing our captain on deadline day. We've got a manager who's threatening to walk if that happens. You know, he was the captain who led us to the FA Cup. This is a manager who has led us to our first major trophy. And we're going to lose both for £35 million when you can't really replace Guehi until January now anyway. So I think Palace have probably thought...
And of course, they'd lost Eze as well, hadn't they?
Yeah, so I think they've thought that, you know, we'll have to just stick for now. And that raises the prospect, of course, of losing Guehi for even less, you know, in January. But that was the course of action they'd taken. So I don't think you can be too critical of Glasner because he was desperate to keep his best players. That is fair for a manager, isn't it? But what will be interesting now is, you know, he's almost done a say as I do and not as I say. If by Leverkusen, for example, come in for him, maybe Ruben Amorim, if he loses his job, he'd be front runner for the Manchester United job. So I think it's going to be interesting what happens there. But Liverpool will have to wait now, and I think it should be okay, barring an injury crisis. They've got 4 centre-backs. Wataru Endo can play there as well. But he would have really sent the, you know, what was already a brilliant transfer window up to a 10 out of 10 in my book. But maybe they'll get him in January for, you know, even less than 35 million.
Now, one person who's been very bored by this saga is clearly our producer Ian, who's been yawning over there. You all right over there? Oh, he hasn't got a mic, unfortunately, so we can't hear what he's saying, but he just said that all of the Blood Red listeners are brilliant, and can you please stick around no matter what happens in the future? I mean, that's more or less what you said, wasn't it? Yeah. Now, there was one notable departure for Liverpool on Monday. That was Harvey Elliott. Now, he's not gone yet officially permanently, but the reality is he has, because, what is it, Villa agreed a loan deal for a season with an obligation to buy for £35 million, which I'm assuming has kind of helped them circumnavigate the PSR issues for this transfer window. Are you a bit sad to see him go? Not least because I know that you got on quite well with him. But can you understand it from everybody's point of view? Yeah, I can, yeah. You know, he played in the European Championships, didn't he, with England, and he win the tournament, and he's a big star of it. Did he score in the final? He certainly scored a couple in the semi-final, I think. Has a brilliant tournament, and then wants to play more, and Liverpool can't really offer him that at the moment, can they? They can't really offer that to anyone, really, barring Mo Salah, Alisson Becker and Virgil van Dijk, that you're going to play every week. So I can understand that from his point of view. I think Villa are getting a really good player at a young age with loads of experience of the elite level, so he's going to be a real asset for them this season. The only thing that I'm just, a bit disappointed about is probably the fee.
which is underselling Harvey a little bit. You know, when you think of some of the fees the players are going for now, you know, Amari Hutchinson's just gone from Ipswich, hasn't he, for 40 million. Tyler Dibbling did okay at Southampton, but he's gone for 40 million. You know, Liverpool have just agreed to sell Harvey Elliott for 35 million, which is, you know, below his market value. But what I do think is interesting now is I don't think Liverpool necessarily wanted to sell Elliott or Kwanzaa, but in a PSR world, you'd almost have to keep the money over, you know, turning over, as it were, money coming in for money to go out. So I think that is why they've obviously agreed to buyback clauses on both, in case both of them kick on and develop as they think that they will. Then they can bring them back in for, you know, a set fee. We think it's about 60 million for Kwanzaa. I'm not too sure what it is for Elliott, but it's the PSR world, isn't it, where it's sort of an innovating knock-on effect that, you know, it's designed to encourage clubs to spend within their means, but it's had a knock-on effect of players being traded when clubs don't necessarily want to, 100%, if that makes sense, just to keep the money coming in and get the pure profits on the books and all that sort of stuff.
Well, that's like in the old days. That's what it used to happen, except the players would just get moved on without them even knowing much about it or having much to say. That used to happen all the time.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure Dave Powell, our business and football reporter, will be more clued up than me and to the practices of it, but it's sort of the way clubs have to work now. So, yeah, a bit disappointed to see him go, because, like you say, he was always good to stop in the mix on and have a chat with. And as journalists, we can't take that for granted.
No, we cannot, no.
But I think it's a good move for him. And if he kicks on, as Liverpool expect, then they might be looking at that buyback clause and thinking quite a shrewd little insert into the clause. I don't know what you think about it. You know, he's made 149 appearances in his 6 years at Liverpool.
He was there for 6 years, wasn't he? As you just said.
It's a long time, really. He's still only 22.
The problem he had is he won't have the burnout that other players who started early, because he did have a couple of long stretches out through injury and he didn't play massive amounts last season. So I don't think that'll be an issue for him. But
he's not a speed-based player
exactly,
as well.
So he's somebody who's probably going to look after himself. He'll be playing for at least another 10 years. So problem is, the way Slot likes his team to set up and the kind of players that he likes is, you know, we've mentioned a few times that Florian Wirtz is younger than Harvey Elliott.
Yeah.
And he's far more advanced in his career than Elliott has at the moment, in terms of not necessarily in terms of the trophies won, but in terms of his individual development. Like, he's a Germany international. You know, he's played in big tournaments, things like that. Just want to say that Titi Kamara, who I don't think it's the Titi Kamara, unfortunately.
How do you know? It might
he says it might be, but he says the transfer window is old news, guys. So I think we should move on from it. And you know what? I'm made up.
What else fills this yawning void of international break?
I am made up that we don't have to talk about transfers anymore, because you know my thoughts on the transfer window. What we can do, though, is talk about kind of related, which we'll get on. I'll get.
No,
to that in a
TC said it's old news.
No. It's kind of related.
Let's pick our team for Burnley.
Let's not do that. Please stop.
12 days time.
Don't try and take over this podcast, Paul. Come on. If you want to sit in this seat, then you could have done. But no, it's me, honestly. Anyway, so Chiesa's been left out of the Champions League squad. Now, when that broke last night, there was a lot of Liverpool fans who were very confused and upset by that, until it obviously emerged that UEFA rules mean you've got to have a certain amount of homegrown players, or rather, you can have only a limited number or a maximum number of non-homegrown players. And Liverpool's first team squad has got 18, and you're allowed 17, so somebody had to go. Ultimately, it's probably down to Leone, Endo, Chiesa, and Gamoa. And the reason he's in it is because at that age, you have to have spent 2 years at a club. If you're under 21, 2 years at a club, consecutive years, and then you put on what they call the B list, which is an unlimited number of players, so you can have a lot of academy players who come through in that. So he wasn't included in that. So ultimately, the call was made by Slot. Looking at it, you probably just think it's Ungamora or Chiesa, and he's gone with the player he sees having more of a long-term future at the club than the other one. Yeah, totally agree. You know, I think Liverpool have made no bones about it. After the Ungamora is now considered the first team option, and it's been incredible rise for him. Really, you know, he only came in last summer, and you know, I was there in Milan when he made his debut in the youth league. So it's 15-20 minutes off the bench for Barry Lutus. So for him to be
succeeding Chiesa a year later is testament to his development. Shows you how much faith and trust the club already have in him to perform. And on the other side, I think for all the outrage that there was certainly across social media yesterday, I think Chiesa's still got a way to go to justify his, this sort of cult hero figure that he is. I think a lot of that is based around his chant. And if he's not there, coming off the bench in the European games, certainly the away games, supporters aren't going to have a reason to sing his song.
They'll sing it anyway, won't they?
Yeah. They can do, of course, but if he comes off the bench with 10 to go and Liverpool are winning, they're going to be singing the song, aren't they? But because he's not there now, that maybe limits their opportunities to do that. But on the playing side of things, I still think there's more to give from Chiesa. Obviously, understandably, he hasn't featured much in his 12 months at Liverpool, primarily because of Mo Salah is there, but also fitness issues and all that sort of stuff. But now it's the time for him to kick on, and okay, he's not going to be able to do that in the Champions League, but I don't think it's any great outrage that he's being overlooked, because, like you say, Liverpool had to make this call, and had Guehi been signed, then Chiesa probably would have made the cut instead. But it is what it is.
So you brought it back to the transfer window there. Well
yes,
done.
Yeah. I just don't get all the frustrations around it, really. He hasn't done a whole lot.
Yeah, and it's like, do you want to hamper the progress of a young lad who quite clearly see an awful lot in, as opposed to this other player who, for whatever reason, didn't make a massive impact last season? Although, he's been better, I think, this season already.
Yeah.
He's looked, and he looks as though he's been more involved. He's had more minutes. He's obviously got the goal against Bournemouth, and even when he came on against Arsenal, he looked a bit more. He knew, I don't say knew what he was doing, but he knew where he fitted in terms of the whole team, the ethos for that. But
I think,
Ungamoa came on after about 4 minutes and scored a goal.
Yeah. But also, do you think, the idea of Rio Ungamoa coming on for 20 minutes against Real Madrid on that flank against Trent Alexander-Arnold?
I was going to ask, he plays right back.
Yeah, so I think supporters on the Cup might like to see that, mightn't they? That'd be interesting.
Yeah, but Danny Carvajal will be playing in that game. They'll put Trent on the bench. I would imagine that might happen in that game, but that's not for a while. Speaking a little bit more transfers, sorry, Titty. Cody Gakpo said something. Mm-hmm. What did he say, Paul?
Yeah, he got asked on he got asked on Netherlands duty by ESPN. ESPN Holland or ESPN, the Dutch version of ESPN, about interest from Bayern Munich. Yeah, and he didn't name them, but he said that there was interest, but then he sort of had a look at Luis Diaz instead. So that was interesting, because I remember that those reports came out and they almost disappeared as soon as they emerged, and it almost felt at the time like Bayern were just smarting a bit from losing out to Florian Wirtz. But clearly there must have been interest for Gakpo to have stood it up, but also he signed a new contract on Saturday, hasn't he? And he also revealed in that same interview that those talks have been in the works for the best part of a year. So that tells you how long these big contracts for senior players can go on for at times, and we know that anyway certainly with Salah and Van Dijk last season, but also it's worth remembering that when you're talking about Ibu Konate's deal and why that hasn't been signed yet or anything like that. So, yeah, thought that was quite interesting that he did confirm that Bayern did show some sort of interest, but I think he, basically affirmed his commitment to Liverpool with the new deal on Saturday.
Were they keen on buying him? So
it does appear that way, yeah.
Thanks.
But I think on Gakpo, I think he's got an opportunity now to become a really big player for Liverpool.
Yeah.
He obviously already is anyway, but he was rotating last season, wasn't he, with Diaz off the left for quite a lot of it. Now he's the undisputed first choice in that position. There's no Doyle and there's no Diaz. Obviously, for different circumstances, we know what's sadly happened to Jota. So there's a chance for him to take a step up in seniority now for Gakpo alongside Salah, while Isak adjusts, while Ekitike continues to, develop his Liverpool career, and obviously Ungamoa, there's a lot that Ungamoa can learn from Gakpo as well. So, there's a chance there for Gakpo to take the step up and become, one of the main men.
Couple of questions that have come in already on our live feed. The Grim Sleeper, who that could be any of us, let's be perfectly honest. Am I right in assuming Slot's only got 2 years left on his contract? And if so, are you aware of any plans to offer him a new or extended deal?
Yeah, that is true. He signed a 3-year deal, didn't he? So he's got 2 left. We did get a chance to speak to Arne Slot.
It's the end of last season, wasn't it?
Yeah. I think it was the weekend of the Palace game, so 2 days before the end of the season. And we did ask him about potential for a new contract. And as you would expect, as he tends to do with any contract-related questions, he played the straight bat and didn't give anything away. But I think Liverpool, would be certainly thinking about it at some stage because of the incredible first season that he's had on Merseyside. I think it was always a 3-year deal as opposed to a 5-year one, because you don't know how it's going to work out, do you, with the managers? And, taking on a new manager with a new backroom staff can be costly if it doesn't work. As the likes of Manchester United have shown almost annually, haven't they, for the past 10 years? So it was a bit of a, let's see how you go. And he's absolutely smashed it out the water, hasn't he? So, yeah, you'd imagine that would be a...
Smashed it out the water?
Smashed it out the water, yeah. Is that another phrase? Smashed it out the park?
Yes, I think it's the park.
Yeah.
I mean, you could smash it out the water if it was in the water.
Yeah.
I'll tell you,
maybe it was.
It would be, maybe it's harder, wasn't it? If you tried smashing something out of the water, that'd be quite difficult. So
well,
if he's done that,
yeah,
then he's done really well.
He smashed it out the water. So you can imagine, obviously, Richard Hughes got a good relationship with Slot. Michael Edwards would probably have the deciding say over all of this. So, yeah, I think it's probably something Liverpool are tentatively looking at. But as of May, Slot was very keen to underplay any developments that was happening there.
Now we've got another question from former pod man, Kai Delaney. Podman, yeah, Kai Delaney. He of the lovely black hair, or just hair in my case. I hope you managed to keep the blood red ship afloat, gents. That's nice.
Smashed out the water?
Exactly. Yeah. Is Doyle the record appearance holder, and could you both hazard a guess of your number of caps? I would guess the first one, 100% yes.
Yeah.
The second one, I dread to think how many times people have had to listen to me trying to be funny and moaning about stuff.
So I think I started coming on the pod back when we used to film in Old Hall Street with Andy Kelly's iPhone. 2017?
17, yeah.
So that's what, 8 years? That's it. Should we do a little bit of quick math?
Let's not do that. I'll just keep churning away.
Yeah, go on, you.
There's also a question here, and it's quite an interesting one actually. It's reacting to some rumours that have happened this week. Any truth in rumours Liverpool see Elise as Salah's long-term replacement? Now, obviously, it's a rumour. It's only just. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing him. I think he's good. Yeah,
I do. Yeah, he was brilliant at Palace, wasn't he? And he's really made the step up at Bayern Munich. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they think Elise is capable of being the sort of long-term successor to Mo Salah. The difficulty is he's at a club who are of similar stature to Liverpool, who don't readily hand over their best players, do they? So, I wouldn't be surprised if Liverpool do like him. But the good thing is I guess Liverpool have managed to kick that down the road by at least 12 months by signing Salah to a new 2-year deal in April, haven't they? So, how old is Elise now? He's still 24, 25?
He's not super old, is he?
Yeah, I mean, I imagine they were keen on him from back in his Reading days before he moved to Palace. I think he won.
He's 23.
He won the Championship's Young Player of the Year this season. Harvey Elliott finished second at Blackburn. So certainly they will have noted what he was doing there. But he's gone to Palace because of I'm sure they guaranteed him game time and an ability to really kick on in his career, and that's exactly what he's done. So yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Liverpool are looking at that. But Bayern Munich are not necessarily the club who you can sort of take on too easily in the transfer window.
Well, at least Liverpool have had some dealings with them. Obviously, there's the whole Gakpo thing. There was Thiago the other year.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's somewhere else I've forgotten. Is there?
Bayern Munich?
Sadio Mane. Mane went there as well. So there is that kind of avenue that's obvious. That's often that is understated. Once you build a good relationship with another club, it's a lot easier to move players in and out, or ask about certain players, or can you take this player on loan. And you will see clubs will sign players. I remember Liverpool at Southampton about 10, 11 years ago. They signed a lot of players. I mean, it didn't all work out, but once you've done one of them, it becomes easier. And I think, certainly with clubs abroad and the bigger clubs, if you've got that kind of relationship with, they've got one with Real Madrid, I would imagine. They've got one with, Bayern Munich. They'll have one with other clubs. That helps. Leverkusen, there's one. So Leverkusen, they'd open up 3 deals, didn't it, this summer with Wirtz, Frimpong and Quanto going the other way eventually. So
and the Red Bull stable are one, aren't they? You look at the dealings they've had with them for years. Keita, Szoboszlai, Fabio Carvalho going the other way. I'm sure there's a few more who have forgotten. Canate, did I mention him? So this is how it works. Essentially, you build up these relationships and it can prove advantageous one way or another. But just going back to the Elise point, would be no shock at all if he was someone who they did think could potentially succeed. Salah in a couple of years' time, but the good news is they don't necessarily have to contemplate it now, like they will have done 12 months ago.
I mean, going back to what we were initially talking about the relationships with clubs, Michael Edwards, who's now Chief Executive Football, FSG, obviously a former Liverpool sporting director, and he brought Richard Hughes into the job, or Simon Hughes, as you like to call him. Once, yeah. He's always said, for all the talk of data and analysis, while it's important and it can help you, see things, it's all about context, but the most important thing is about the relationships that you've got with people. It's about people relationships. Because ultimately, that you're not dealing with numbers. You're dealing with actual physical human beings. And, if I think sometimes people forget that it's the same as in any job. So if you get on with somebody, it's a lot easier to get stuff done. If you've got the respect of people, it's a lot easier to get stuff done. If you go through the correct channels. But it'll be interesting to see how the relationship is between Liverpool and Newcastle. But the thing on that is that, obviously over the Isak stuff, but the thing on that is that Newcastle, obviously the chief executive is away and he's going to be replaced, and they haven't got a sporting director, so there will be new people in there, and I don't know who exactly would have dealt with the
well,
deal.
It went all the way to the owners.
Yeah, well, this is the thing.
It was sort of ownership level that was negotiated at, which come in quite handy for Liverpool because FSG have a good relationship with Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia. Yeah. Through the whole golf, live golf and all that sort of stuff. Not too clued up on the specifics of that, but by all accounts, that proved to be quite helpful. But yeah, I mean, even you look at Liverpool's hierarchy. Edwards and Hughes used to work with Eddie Howe, and there was all that sort of stuff. I'm not sure whether that was too much of a help, really, but generally, you're right in terms of the relationships you build up. And
of course it's easy to do that if you've got people in position who've been there, like in the case of Edwards, who's been there for a while, and even if Richard Hughes hasn't been there particularly long, he's been around the circuit a long time. He's been in the game. The reason he's at Liverpool is because he got such a good reputation at Bournemouth.
Yeah, and even Slot's appointments, Slot was invited to a game at Anfield years ago, 2017, I think.
That's last week for me.
Yeah. It was a game against Tottenham. I think Liverpool won 2-0 possibly. Slot was invited to it by Julian Ward. So that's going back years. Liverpool have known about this young Dutch coach for years and years. And Julian Ward subsequently flew out to Rotterdam to basically spend a couple of days at Feyenoord's training base just to sort of, under the guise of, picking up tips and hints on how to work. And what he was doing really was a bit of a scouting mission to see how Slot worked up close.
Yeah.
And that has eventually seen him come back and report that whatever he does is all top notch. So glowing recommendation via seeing it up close. And that's where, like you say, these relationships come in.
Obviously, you mentioned Julian Ward. He's at FSG now, but he obviously was a sporting director for a bit. He'd obviously worked at Liverpool in various different jobs before that. These have been people who've been there for a very long time, and it's kind of what's happened this summer in terms of the amount of play or the amount of money that they spent on the players that they brought in. That's a culmination of all of that work and getting to that point where they've won the league. They've got loads of money in the bank. They've negotiated PSR. They've had a season with the new manager. They know that there's a squad that's up for... Let's face it, they probably didn't expect to win the league last year, but they surpassed expectations, but they knew quite well that this was coming. And everything has built to them being able to do what they've done, because I think, we wrote a piece, didn't we, this morning on what would you rate Liverpool's transfer window. We both gave them 9 out of 10. It would have been 10 had they signed Guehi, but they spent more than £100 million twice on a player, which is like, and broke technically the British record transfer, certainly the club record, twice inside a couple of months. And they've signed 2 players who most people say Isak, probably one of the best strikers in Europe at the moment, which is interesting when you think about it, because all he wanted to do was join Liverpool. So what does that tell you about Liverpool's stance at the moment? Standing, I should say, at the moment. And then you've got Wirtz, who's for a long time been touted as he could be not the next Messi, but a kind of a player who could have as much of an impact on a top team as anybody else. And they've managed to persuade him to come, as opposed to going to Bayern Munich, who we just mentioned, Manchester City, and Real Madrid was sniffing around for a little bit, obviously through the Xabi Alonso connection, because he was his manager at Leverkusen. Yeah,
you're right. And I think, right now is probably as exciting a period as there's been for quite some time. And sometimes you're reluctant to go too overboard with it, because you think, well, you think of sort of neutrals listening to our gushing praise of how well Liverpool are ran, but you can't really, there's not a whole lot to criticise, is there really? When you think of what they've been able to do in the last 12 to 18 months. Since Jurgen Klopp announced that he was leaving, they've restructured the entire football operations department. They brought Edwards back into the fold. He's overseen things. He's headhunted Richard Hughes. That's led to Slot. We know what happened last season. Winning the league was an unexpected, fantastic achievement. And then they've gone and really put a marker down in the window by, shattering their own spending record, but doing it in a way that has not, troubled them PSR-wise, because they've still managed to recoup about half that by selling players who ultimately were either on the fringes or it was clear that needed to move on for their own sort of careers. So it's been an absolutely fantastic period for Liverpool, in a traditional sporting sense. Still the thing for me is how Jota's death manifests at some stage in a footballing sense. And it might seem a bit crass talking about it like that, but you saw Mo Salah on the opening day against Bournemouth when he scores, and that sort of vulnerability was strange to see. But
it's not crass to say that, because that is going to be a contributory factor to what happens to Liverpool this season. Everybody grieves at different times and in different ways. So some players, like we saw Caoimhin Kelleher did an interview just ahead of Ireland's World Cup qualifying. He mentioned it, didn't he? He's saying it's been tough for him, and he's left. And he says he's going to be. And I know it's tough for the players who obviously were very close to him, and we know that the squad's very tight. Anyway, that's part of the reason why they done so well first under Klopp and then under Slot. So for something like that to happen, and it is totally, you can't prepare for that. It's not like somebody leaving. If you say your mate's leaving, and then you can still phone them up or go around or see them. You'll see them in opposition, something like that. But for what happened, it is going to hit them at various points in the season, because they haven't really had chance to stop as such, apart from obviously when it happened. But then since then, they've just got back on and doing what a lot of people would do. It's like, well, I need to get back on the horse now and just carry on going and see what happens.
But then there's also the idea that it might, sort of take his memory with them along the way. And when they play Wolves, for example, it's going to be an emotional couple of games, isn't it? Imagine the 20 minutes of every game at Anfield, there's going to be, fans on the seats singing the Jota song. So that's going to stay with them, of course, throughout the season. But, from that perspective, it's going to be interesting to see how it manifests in a sort of results-based, way. But just going back to in terms of how they run, it's been a spectacular period, really. Going back to Trent announcing that he was leaving. Since then, it's been, well, can we get Florian Wirtz? Can we get Jeremy Frimpong to replace him? The ball was already rolling on that. Ekitike coming in. They wanted Isak as the one for a long time, and then you get. I mean, Rio Ingamoa's development over the summer. They've sort of played that to perfection in terms of timing it and stuff. So, yeah, I think Liverpool are in a really, really healthy position. And our prime, not to dominate, because you can never guarantee that, but certainly for the next couple of years at least, they will be the team who you'd expect are going to be the ones pushing most for the title.
Yeah, I'm not sure teams will be able to dominate like City did recently or before that. You look at United and Liverpool in 70s and 80s. I don't think that's even possible.
Yeah, I think even the term like that phrase in City dominating, like two of those titles were won by a point, weren't they? So he
still won them.
No, but that's not necessarily dominating as such. That obviously were the best team.
It is.
No. What I mean is, it's.
Do you mean they weren't massively miles away?
Yeah, like when they got 100 points and they won it by 17 points or whatever.
Yeah.
Two of those was a four successive titles.
So basically, two of the
5 in a row.
Was it 5?
They won 5 out of 6, didn't they?
Yeah. So two of those 5 were walkovers.
Yeah. So you can't guarantee that Liverpool are going to dominate in the traditional sense of the word, but certainly. If you finish above Liverpool, you're probably going to be the champions. So, it's like I said, it's a really exciting period for supporters, and there've been 1 or 2 question marks and things to address in the opening 3 games. But the fact that they've still come away with maximum points, having had a really difficult start as well, and then adding Isak to the mix on deadline day, it's set up for a really exciting season.
Staff has said, sorry, but Chiesa's our new lucky charm. We scored the winning goals when he was on the pitch, which technically is correct. He was.
Was he already on the pitch against Arsenal?
Yeah, he was. Yes, that's technically correct. I'd like to see Wharton here, but I doubt Palace will sell both to us. I think you're probably right there. A couple of other things before we finish. One of them is going back to Mo Salah. He's become a bit combative on social media, hasn't it? He's taken on a fan website who... If anybody hasn't seen it, they posted an image of Diaz and Nunes, and underneath they had pictures of Wirtz, who's the new number 7, and Isak, who's the new number 9, and said, "Is this the biggest update in footballing history?" And Mo didn't like that.
No, he didn't, and he responded to
upgrade.
it. Didn't he?
What did I say?
Update.
Yeah. Did I? Upgrade. Close enough.
Yeah, I don't want to name the fan website. Don't want to give them the notoriety, but yes, he was outspoken, wasn't he? And, do you know what? I think someone mentioned it just generally on Twitter yesterday, and it struck a chord with me, actually. I thought they raised quite a good point. Salah feels like he's struggling a bit with everything that's happened, with the death of his mate, Jota, and, like I mentioned there, the vulnerability he showed in front of the Kop after the goal against Bournemouth. Strange to see, wasn't it? These superheroes essentially, in front of the cameras being like that. And it's absolutely understandable that he might be feeling this way. And I think it was interesting that he gave Harvey Elliott a nice send-off as well on Twitter with a little bit of a message. And I think he just feels like last season was just such a tight-knit group of players, and, everything that they achieved. Salah set out from day one to win the Premier League, and he sort of stripped off everyone, didn't he, on route to doing it with his, 32 goals in the end? I can't even remember. But certainly he was the best player in the Premier League, and, he set out to do what he did, and then the summer happens. A number of his mates get sold. A good friend in Jota sadly passes away, and I think he's still feeling the effects of all the change, which is okay. So, it feels like he's just a little bit coiled at the moment with his social media activity. For someone who is very rarely puts anything up outside of him sort of doing a little bit of gym work with his top off. So, but that's fine. No problem with that. Let's see. Hopefully on the other side of the international break he kicks into life.
Kind of got lost in the whole transfer thing, but a new vice captain, Andy Robertson.
Yeah, good move.
I think it's a good move. Yeah, I mean he might not play as much as he has done over recent seasons, but he's clearly an influential member of the squad. And as we always say, the players spend most of their time at the training ground, and he's certainly one of the senior players there. And you've seen from the videos that they put out every now and again that he's one of the big voices. So he's somebody that all of the players respect and look up to, and he's somebody that can work closely with Virgil van Dijk. So and he's obviously been in the leadership group that's been there for quite a few years now. So no, it is a a good call.
Yeah, he's Scotland captain, isn't he? So he's obviously already got those leadership qualities. But I think you're right. You know, he's in his 9th season now at Liverpool, and some people were a bit surprised that it wasn't Mo. But you think if Van Dijk's not playing, then Salah's probably not going to be playing because there's going to be a cup game or whatever. So Robertson can come in and wear the armband. And yeah, it was a good decision by Slot. You know, seeing him up close in open training in Asia, and you see how much of a character he is around the place. And Rio and Gamora, who's taking the step up, you know, he's almost taking the mickey out of him in a sort of Glaswegian Scouse style, if you like, and, you know, making it known.
How did that sound?
Well, I'm not going to do an accent. I can barely do a Scouse accent around the Glaswegian one. But he's clearly...
That's not what Jurgen used to say.
Oh, no, yeah. But he's clearly, like, you know, getting his arm round Gamora in that sort of Mickey-taking way, and just bringing him into the group that way.
Rib-taking. Just like smashing it out of the
water.
Yeah.
Ribbing him and taking the mickey and all that sort of stuff. And there was something he said last week for his birthday, wasn't it? You know, got a wee little haircut because it's your birthday, and Gamo was laughing and stuff. And, you know, it's all part of the camaraderie, but I think that's important behind the scenes, isn't it? And Robertson is probably the one who sets the tone in that way. And, you know, we've still got a lot to give. He's only 31 still, I think. Obviously, a lot of mileage on the clock because of the way that he's played the game for years. You know, 7 of 9 seasons under Jurgen Klopp, up and down that flank. But into the last year of his contract as well, isn't he? And I think he'd love a new one. But good decision. And also as well, you know, it's just a reminder of his importance. You know, the vice captaincy. So good decision, I think.
Just have a quick look, see if there's any more questions. We've got one from Barry McLaughlin who says, do Frimpong and Soboslai, as you actually pronounce his name, start when everyone's fit? And if they do, in what positions? Our squad strength is superb and can see a lot of rotation, but hopefully not for the sake of it. So he's asking, can Frimpong and Soboslai start when everyone's fit? It's a bit early to say. I'd say it's a bit early to say because you don't know what Bradley's going to be like. And I think it's going to be a horses for courses thing.
Yeah.
But I think it's more along the lines of, let's say Liverpool played a Champions League final tomorrow and everybody was fit. Does Soboslai and Frimpong start?
Still early days with Frimpong, isn't it? You know, we've only seen him a couple of times, really.
Certainly at right back.
Yeah. Look good against Palace in the Community Shield. Gets his somewhat fortunate goal, but you can see what he's going to bring. He's going to stretch teams. He's going to give a little bit of an outball in wide areas. But Szoboszlai's been fantastic, hasn't he, at right back against really tough games as well. Newcastle away and then Arsenal. Obviously scores the winning goal against Arsenal and then, you know, all but getting named at the assist for Ngamoa at Newcastle in the 100th minute. So, it's a little bit of a dilemma, this one, because I wrote in my verdict on Sunday that he's almost becoming undroppable, but where does he play? You know, Slot had him last season as a sort of tireless number 10, you know, pressing and harrying, chasing. And then obviously he's got the quality to go with it when he gets on the ball. He's played a little bit deeper during pre-season. He started the season at right back. So I'm not sure where he fits in, but you almost feel like you have to because of how well he's playing.
Just one final question from Titty again. And he says, worst pundit in the world? That's the question. Who is the worst pundit in the world? Worst? Mm-hmm. Joe Rimmer, maybe? Do you think?
Does he mean like mainstream?
I don't know. It doesn't specify.
I'll say Roy Keane.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, he's great. He's pantomime. He's box office when he's kicking off at United.
He's just doing his job.
If you're watching Palace v Fulham on a Sunday and you want to know the nuances of the midfield battle, you know, he doesn't offer a whole lot. You know, it's just sort of could have done better, should have done better. He's got to do better.
Are you kind of suggesting why he wasn't a massive success as a manager?
No, nothing to do with that. It's just, you know, specific punditry. I don't think you're learning a whole lot. But I get the gimmick around it.
It's television, isn't it? It's television.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing better when United have been battered and he's laying into them all. That is why he's in the side.
Yeah.
But
he's got a very specific role. Yeah. Right, I think that should do us. Join us soon for whoever it is in whatever this is called. Cheerio.